Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
How you doing, Brother Asante?
Alhamdulillah, I'm beautiful. Everything is good.
All right.
Yes.
And welcome to our show. This is the Al-Islam Center and Community Issues Show. Today we have a really, really powerful show for you. We have as our guest today, Brother Asante Shabazz.
Yes.
And I'll be your host, Brother Benjamin Shabazz. But before we get started, we always want to show our appreciation and gratitude to our Maker. We'd like to open up with the prayer, the Muslim prayer, the Al-Fatiha. So, Brother Asante, if you would say it in Arabic, I'll say it in English.
Alhamdulillah, no problem. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal lathina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen.
With the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. All the praises belong to Allah, Lord of all systems of knowledge, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, master of the day of judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and thee alone do we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those that you are pleased with, those who have not earned your anger and are going not astray. Ameen.
Ameen.
All right, feel much better now.
Yes, absolutely.
Brother Asante, one of the reasons why we brought you on the show is because we know that you have a powerful story to tell. Mm-hmm. We know that if you ever be able to tell your whole story for the world, you'll be a magnet to those who need that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. So first thing I want to ask you is your name, Asante Shabazz. How did you get that name, or how did you choose that name?
To be honest with you, the name came when I was incarcerated, and I was in this facility in the state of Washington called Column Bay Correction Center. And at this particular time, this is when they sent a lot of young people who they considered wild, rambunctious, recalcitrant, very defiant towards authority. And so I found myself in a lot of different situations. There's times I've been involved in coercions. There's times I was involved in assaults on other inmates and even officers, unfortunately. And because of those actions and those behaviors, I found myself in IMU, which stands for Intensive Management Unit, which is the highest level of security that you can be confined to. And so therefore I was on security level, administratively it's called IMS, which is Intensive Management Status. So while I was in there, this was probably the only time that everything was able to slow down a little more. Things were also able to penetrate my psyche, my spirit, obviously my cerebral cortex, forward thinking, in terms of sitting down and reading and studying, being able to hold on to information without some of the outside distractions. And at this time, I was probably no younger than 15, 16, because granted, I was sent to prison as a juvenile to an adult facility, one of the youngest in the state of Washington, to be tried as an adult at the age of 13, 6 weeks after turning 13. So by this time, I already had anywhere from 3 to 4 years already incarcerated. So I was sitting and I was reading, and I was introduced to a book called Afrocentricity, written by a scholar, Brother Dr. Molifi Kiti Asante. And when I got a little bit of understanding of the Asante, or for some people may say the Ashanti tribe, in West Africa, their vigilance and their vigor to protect and honor their cultural characteristics, and they weren't soldiers. I understand the difference. They were warriors. They were shaman. They were spiritual people. They were enlightened people. When I understood that when the Europeans had invaded different parts of Africa and it was coming in to engage in battle with the Asante tribe, they was able to defeat the Asante tribe. There was word that had got back all the way to the continent of Europe. When you go over to Africa, in that part of Africa, Western Africa, to invade, stay clear of the Asante tribe. Stay completely away from them. Because they was fighting and they was willing to give up all that they had to preserve all that they are. And in that, I started to think of myself in that same regard. I was like, I'm underneath a constant bombardment, a constant attack against my humanity. And one thing I did not want to do, like I've seen many other brothers who have wanted to get rid of some of the street mentality, strip that disease off of them. When I mean disease, because you separate the word, it becomes a dis-ease. You have no comfort on the inside. When you want to strip that off of you, some people lay down something to pick up something that's still foreign to them. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay connected to who I was. I wanted to stay connected to my roots. And so one thing I said, I'm in a constant fight because I'm underneath a constant attack against my humanity and my identity. But I'm willing to push the line however far I need to take it. Obviously, into my young, exuberance, I was reading and conceptualizing from a different perspective and also from the limited experience that I had at that moment. But it was necessary to put that spirit over me, to put that kind of covering over me. So this is where the name Asante had taken its root for me. And so here I am standing in that honor, still fighting against forces, whether they're seen or unseen, whether they're known or unknown, because I'm staying true to who I am, in the best way that I possibly can do so. And also, we're from the tribe of Shabazz, and it's about a family, it's about a unit. And that's what I'm connected to. I'm about the family, I'm about the unit. And I understand in order to have a true impact on any individual, I understand that everything works in a system. Families are systems, institutions of learning are systems, medicines, it's a system. And it has to have some type of organizational structure in order for the system to work, for it to have a wonderful impact on the individual level. That's if somebody is supposed to receive the right medicine from the institution or the system of medicine, then it has to have a structural organizational approach where they know what they're doing. And then you can be effective to the individual. So the same thing has to happen even on the family structure, the family system. And this is where the Shabazz aspect come in. It's together, and we have to have a wonderful system. So therefore the members of that family can be supported and held up in honor in a way that makes sure that when they leave from here and go out to the world, they're carrying on that particular same energy and that same message, and they're affecting the world as chain agents and making the best out of the decisions that they make.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
And I like that last phrase when you said change agents. And that's what we have to be about.
Yes.
Because just to follow the status quo is a sure route to failure. So, I want to get the name of that book too. I think I want to pick up on that book.
Yes.
What's the name of that book again?
Afrocentricity by Brother Dr. Molifikiti Asante.
All right. So you say you was involved in the system, right?
Yes, sir.
Correction system.
Yes, sir.
So could you tell us a little bit about some of the plans you had in there, let's say before you started doing this reading, and then after you started doing this reading?
Well, plans that I had before reading, they pretty much was non-existent. You cannot really structuralize any type of form of safety, security, or forward progress in terms of your life if you do not do some form of reading. Because reading, it provides reference. It gives you a foundation to build things upon. So when I didn't have a foundation, as they say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I was hoodwinked, bamboozled. I fell for a lot of different things, a lot of different traps, and found myself unfortunately suffering from those consequences. Whether they were, I was conscious of them or not, I was hoodwinked, and I know that I was so conditioned to the point that my condition was conditioned. And so there was many layers like an onion that needed to be peeled off. So the only plans that I really had, they were something like a broken clock, meaning that it was right twice a day, but it wasn't something to set my life schedule to. And what I mean by that is that I was part of a subculture. I came up in a street life where, having a gang identity, a gangster identity was a part of the norm for my generation. So that was my plan, was to continue on in that behavior, continue on in that mentality, continue on living in that particular lifestyle. And so, like I said, it was a broken clock perspective. It was right twice a day, but it was nothing to set my life schedule to. And in many regards, I often tell people was basically, you're trying to be king turd of the mess pal. At the end of the day, you're still in mess, and that's where I found myself. And so once I was able to, I guess you could say, thwart off these aberrations of this fixation of a particular lifestyle because of how well I was indoctrinated, I started to read, and obviously, without even me knowing, it was peeling away these particular conditional layers that I was referring to earlier. Obviously, I didn't start out reading Frantz Fanon. I didn't start out reading Maya Angelou, saying Before They Come in the Morning, Angela Davis and things of that nature, or the autobiography of Sada Shakur, so forth and so on. I didn't start out reading those things because they had no interest into where my developmental level was at that time. I started out reading things, of course, like Donald Goines books, Horizon and El Dorado Red and, Iceberg Slim, Pimp, and other things from, Brother Monster Cody, Sanyika Shakur, the autobiography of an LA gang member, stuff that had a street interest in some of the things that I was already indoctrinated into. But without realizing that, in Maya Angelou, I remember seeing her say something before. She said, it don't matter what you read as long as you read. When I had knowledge, right? I'm not saying that I don't really think I have any knowledge anymore, but when I was just young and I was coming to feeling myself, I should look at that statement. I was like, nah, I don't agree with that statement. It does matter what you read. But she had way more wisdom. See, I had a little bit of knowledge, but she had wisdom, right? Knowledge only says what to do, and wisdom tells you how to do it, right? So with her wisdom, she was basically saying that through your reading, you're going to find yourself where you need to be if you continue to keep doing it. And I didn't realize and understand that, because if I looked at even at my own epiphany in the transition that my life had taken, I would have really understood it like I do today. So I was reading, and I wasn't reading healthy material. I was basically eating McDonald's every day. So my brain had a whole lot of fat on it. I still was indoctrinated into the street life, but the references that the books were providing. And one of the breakthroughs is when I was reading the autobiography of an LA gang member by Monster Cody, or also Nathan McCall, Make Me Wanna Holler. He had references. And those references, I'm thinking, well, if this book is that great, these references that he's referring to has to be just as good. They must be on the same line. So all of a sudden, I'm putting library request in while you're on the institution. You write it down and say, hey, I want to get this book out of the library because I didn't have no other way to go. I didn't really read that much when I was in the streets. So the next thing you know, I'm requested Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, Seize the Time. Had no idea I'm about to be learning about the Black Panther Party 10-point platform program and things of that nature. I didn't know that I was getting ready to have this ideology breakthrough, that it was going to lead me to something. So that's what I was talking about, that foundation. You cannot learn how to build a building if you don't go to school first and know how to read the blueprints in order to create the architecture that goes into building that building. So it's the same thing about building a lifestyle. You need to go to school, learn some things, get your mind thinking, get those synapses and those neurons and those transmitters snapping in your brain and creating some original content to where you can do some prolific things in life. And that's what reading is carried me, and it continues to carry me, and I continue to ride that momentum.
There you go, brother. Yeah. All right, so my next question was going to be, after you had your breakthrough, what kind of plans did you have? But you kind of answered that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now, during your incarceration, after you started doing your reading and everything, so then what happened? What type of activities did you get involved in?
Oh man, what happened? First and foremost, it was not only a psychological thing that happened or occurred. It was not only a physical thing, but it was also a moral and spiritual thing. There was times that I was going to sleep, I was going to bed with an octagon in my spirit. Like we tune in to watch, Ronda Rousey and all these different MMA fighters to fight. But I had an octagon before it was even made popular what an octagon was in terms of MMA fighting. I had a fight going on in my spirit every night because that literature that I was reading, that content, that information, it was groundbreaking to the point that it was earth shattering. It was shattering concepts about myself. It was shattering concepts and ideologies that I had held strong to prior to the information seeping into my life. And therefore, there was a transition. And I speak to the people about this all the time because there's individuals who, some of them, when they're on the inside, when they're incarcerated, what I mean by the inside, they are seeking some type of social engagement, some type of social connection because they may like it on whatever level. Their families or friends may have fallen off. They don't want to serve their time with them, whatever. They may become black sheeps in their family because they committed a crime, whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden they find themselves gravitating to different socialization, cliques or whatever. And Islam is one of those things that invites pretty much all on the inside for certain people. So for a long time, I wasn't engaged in the process. I was a part of the high food chain when it came to the street life, to the gangster life. I had a position. I wasn't trying to give that up. I enjoyed it. I had the accoutrements that came along with it. So being a Muslim or even being something that was not my desire. I didn't want to be a Muslim. I was not looking to be a Muslim. Like some people who might seek protection, I didn't need to see. They were seeking protection for people like me. That's why they needed to be Muslim, right? Because they might have came in with in some cases, with a funny charge, with a funny beef. You come back from the commissary line with a big sack and all this food. You're not about to eat that because you're not part of the pecking order in terms of the chain of respect. So they need to seek protection. I wasn't in that particular line of that population. So when the information was presented to me, in terms of not only Islam, but also about my African history and my African culture, but it created that octagon in my spirit. So I would lay down and go to sleep fighting and wrestling with concepts and ideologies that I had held dear to, and it was scary. And the reason why I'm saying it's scary because it was a part of me that knew that what I was coming in contact with and relating to, that it was going to eventually make me have to give up some of the things that I held dear to, and I didn't know how to relinquish those things, and then I didn't know what the next step was going to be. Because in one aspect, I had built up a lot of support, collateral. Whether it was in the wrong direction, I knew what I was getting over here. And if I have to change the direction of my life and make that 180, I didn't have that kind of networking. I didn't have those resources. I didn't have that type of support. I didn't have that kind of love. I didn't have that kind of endearment. So that's a scary thing. So a lot of times I tell people when I do see them people make those 180s, I already know who has the strength because that takes a lot of strength. Falling into the crowd and doing those things, that's easy. I realize that now. It took a lot of strength to go against everything that was pretty much supporting me, whether it was right or wrong. And so it just had a breakthrough in my life. And so those plans created an opportunity where I stopped, in a way, not only promoting the lifestyle, but engaging in things that promoted the lifestyle. I stopped smoking marijuana. I pulled up my pants. It's all of a sudden didn't feel right to have my pants hanging too low. Changing my vernacular, using the N-word, it didn't feel too right. Once I understood that this word was birthed out of thin, pale lips, and a lot of times most people who heard this, if you go back a century years ago, that was the last thing they heard, and it was not out of endearment, it was not out of love in the way that we try to justify using that word today. And I'm not here to place any type of blame on anyone who uses that word. I understand it. I understand that the profanity is not usually in the language, but is in the conditions. And the language reflects the conditions. And if we want to change the language, then we need to change the conditions. And a lot of times we can say, really the conditions are a lot worse than what we can say. So even when people use profanity, it doesn't offend me because it's the conditions that offend me more. So if we can change the conditions, then hopefully we can change the reflection of what we say in our language. But I know for myself that my condition was changing, so therefore my language was changing. So there, and I was bringing that back to my people, to my brothers who were on the inside, and they was looking at me like, Will, man, I was like the most unexpected person to make this particular turn. And so when I did make this turn, individuals were looking at me differently. Some of them loved it, some of them didn't. Obviously, for people loved it for different reasons. Now they don't have an enemy. Now they don't have somebody that's going to be pressuring them. Not to say I was this big bad, guy or whatever. At the end of the day, I was just one of those kind of people. I guess you could say I appeared or came off that I didn't fear anything, and I was willing to accept whatever the dangers of the circumstances were. So they knew that they had somebody that's of qualifiable character who they now can be on their side, where the lines of division weren't there. If I was part of this group in terms of my gang affiliations, and it was a part of another group in terms of their gang affiliations, when you're now saying that we all the same, we have to, and I tell people all the time, and I shock them when I say this, I say to black people that oftentimes we have to look at ourselves through the same lenses or through the same eyes that white people look at us through. And I'm talking about from a certain perspective, not from every category, but from a limited category. And what I mean by that is that when they look at us, they see a conglomerate. They see a whole group. And we need to start looking at ourselves in that same way as too. Because when on the other side, we individualize those people, that group, no, these young people versus the old people, they come from this. No. When they look at us, they don't see the lines of division. They don't see a Crip. They don't see a Blood. They don't see a disciple. They don't see a vice lord. They don't see a Democrat, a Republican, somebody who is from the ghetto who's not. They see a black individual, and they have a particular interest in that and a particular rule of engagement when they see that. And so if we can take that same ideology and that same concept, but in that limited perspective, is that when I see you, I see my brother. When I see her, I see a sister. I see a king. I see a queen. I see me when I see you, instead of trying to place lines of divisions. And so I can when I see you, I want to wrap around my arms of love and support. So when I go around here and I walk around my neighborhood, I don't shy away from eye contact when I see a brother, but I put a smile on my face and I lighten up and I say, how you doing, king? How you doing, queen? Because I know when I see you, I see me. And I know that if we're going to really make any kind of breakthrough, we have to approach it from that perspective.
I'm excited, brother.
Yeah.
It's like I'm at my birthday party.
Yeah.
This is great to hear, brother. Mm-hmm. This is great to hear. So you endured. So then you start to blossom really inside.
Mm-hmm.
Start to blossom inside.
Mm-hmm.
So then you became a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now what was that like after you became a Muslim?
Yeah, it was a transition. And you talk about blossoming, and I'm one of those kind of individuals. You have to bloom where you are. Grow where you're planted, wherever you find yourself. That means make the most out of your environment. That's what I mean by that. Make the most out of your circumstances. I once read a quote that said, "Rise above your circumstances rather than belong to them." And when I was in prison, I had to understand that I had to transform the cell that was intended to be a cell for me. I had to transform it into a classroom. So every day I was learning. And consequently, when the cell became a classroom, the prison facility or the institution itself became a university. So I was in a perpetual state of learning. And I also understand that this can be a place, it can either be a womb or a tomb. Meaning it could be a place of development or a place of decay. And the choice is mine no matter what. The choice is mine. And I talk to people and I ask this question on many different landscapes. And the inception of this question first originated with myself while I was on the inside. And I would ask them, what is the most powerful thing that our Creator has given us? There's a vast array of responses and answers to that question. Some people say, the ability to see, the ability to speak, or the ability to have whatever particular gift or whatever. some people say life. I always tell them there's not a right or wrong answer to that question. But on my personal level, I believe the most powerful thing, the most strongest thing that our Creator can give us is the choice to make something out of your life. That's powerful. There's nothing more you can really do. You can make something out of your life. That's powerful. Like you can have a child, but you can't make that child do anything or become anything.
Well, you hear the music. That means we got to wrap this up.
Yes.
We got a few more minutes. And I think with this first show, you have inspired a lot of people.
Thank you.
You've inspired things in me. You've reawakened things in me.
Thank you.
So my question right now to you is, would you be willing to come back and do a part 2 of this?
Most definitely. Yes, sir.
Outstanding, outstanding.
Yes, sir.
So to our listening audience, our watching audience, we want you to know that these are the type of shows that we like to bring you on the Al Islam Center and Community Issues Group. But I think that of all the shows we've done, this one is very impactful. It's one of the most powerful shows because you're not only talking it, you're living it. And you coming out here and you inspiring these people to let them know the choice is ultimately yours. And you've also expressed the thing about reading, how reading is necessary. And you follow along with some great ones, Malcolm X, I'm thinking of the first one off. He started reading. So reading is really crucial in this whole thing. Absorbing more information. So we have less than a minute. Anything you want to say to help us close this out?
That the most powerful thing you can do is to create something out of your life, and that greatness is the expectation for each and every one of us, and it's your choice. It's awaiting you, whether you show up or not, but it only can happen if you show up.
Can't beat that, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. To our viewing audience, we want to thank you. And tune in next time for part 2. We want to greet, just like the brother said, Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings of God be upon you.